Okay, we're back. We are back in action. I'm going to do something smart and go on the chat. How do I get off the chat?
Just message Prabhupada without towering. So,
Okay.
is everything okay on that one?
We have a chat, and I want to get it back. Let's see if I go back. Oh yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, it's a new show. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. My Krishna. So this is starting to malfunction.
What is it, a mic?
Scaring me. Oh, the record button. It's not cooperating.
I'll be back.
Hare Krishna.
Just WhatsApp
Okay. Hey Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. So what we're talking about now is love. And I'm going to do something really important. I turned on the chat, so now I can see you. So I was thinking today we could talk about Krishna's love for his devotees. We've been talking more about the love of the devotee. And we're going to go back and we'll talk more about the love of the devotee, as I've been saying, in terms of the technical stages, the very divisions of prema, which I've mentioned is a little complicated and sometimes difficult to understand, but interesting, even if we don't understand it, that such high levels of love exist. But I think it's also interesting to talk about Krishna's love for his devotee. So now I'm on chat, so if you say anything, I'll see it. Before I didn't see it. Let me see if I can go off chat and go back. Yeah, I can go off and on. Okay. So, is that okay? Does anyone have another aspect of love they wanted me to talk about? I'll just wait a minute. If there was something that you were really expecting different, then that we can talk about. Otherwise, we'll talk about this. Problem is when I ask you questions, I think it takes you 20 seconds to hear me after I say it as it goes through the internet. And then I don't know how long it takes you to think, and then I don't know how long it takes for me to get your answer. But it seems like from the time I ask a question to the time I get an answer, it's sometimes a minute or at least 40 seconds. All right, so, but if I don't see anything, then I can assume the topic of Krishna's love is a good topic. I think it's a great topic. So anyway, let's assume it's a great topic. And if something happens before I really get into it, then we can change in midair. But once I really get into it, there's no turning back. I find it's one thing that's interesting about Krishna is that we look at the world and we think, okay, God loves everybody, but sometimes you might question, in your heart of hearts. Maybe not consciously, but just this idea that, okay, Krishna loves me, he loves you, but then he loves other people, but then you get news that difference between affection and love. That's on my Sacred Union CD. We talk about that. That's an interesting topic. Anyway, Sitala, save it for next time, or send me a message, a WhatsApp. I can think about it more. So, you ever hear about something bad that happens to a devotee? They lost their job, they can't pay their rent, or they're going, they were supposed to get married, but it didn't work out. Or they're going through a really difficult situation, or they can't get a job. They're applying, there's no money. They're living at home, but it's really difficult. There's no devotees there. Or someone's going through a very bad marital relationship. Or physical problems. And then, or one time some devotees they were coming back from Radhakund and they got held up by bandits, and one devotee got shot. Not seriously, but got shot. And, naturally when these things happen, I think, okay, Krishna loves his devotees, but why? And then you might say, well, these are just practicing devotees and they have their karma. Okay. For the sake of argument, then okay, we'll go with that. And then Prabhupada tells the story that when he had left home, could have been after he took sannyas, I don't remember, that a bull came and gorged him, knocked him over. Sometimes he tells the story of having, I think, heat stroke when he was distributing his books, and of course Prabhupada with his heart attacks. And you think, how do you reconcile this as love, that God loves me, Krishna loves me? I was reading yesterday, this question was asked to Prabhupada, and he said the vision of a devotee, this may be hard to understand or realize. He said the vision of a devotee is like a love bite. He sees everything as love. Krishna is loving him. Now, how to understand that will take some realization, but a pure devotee doesn't see anything that's happening other than Krishna's love for him. Because he knows in his heart of heart that Krishna loves him and loves everyone. And Krishna loves his devotees, and Krishna is dear to his devotees. So it's all love bites. There's nothing that is not an aspect of Krishna's affection. So as a philosophical principle, we have to start there, that everything that Krishna does for his devotees is an aspect of his affection. Even, sometimes we've heard of devotees being in difficult situations in preaching and they were actually killed. And the same question comes up, how is this that Krishna allowed this? And they're not always going to be easy answers, but at the same time, if we base it on this principle that everything is coming from Krishna's affection, you can imagine that maybe that person who was killed in the fire of Sankirtan is now dancing with Krishna. A moment later is dancing with Krishna. If you knew that, then you might say, yeah, well, this is, this devotee wanted actually, in their heart, probably wanted to die in service, doing service. And now he or she is dancing with Krishna. So certainly, if I knew that, I would see, yeah, this is Krishna's love. I think another thing is that obviously no one's going to live forever, so you have to die some way. And the way Krishna chooses for us to die will be different for others and for each of us, and it may involve a lot of our own personal purification. So that we'll understand, we may understand more personally if we're going through it, why Krishna's doing it. But if we see it as his affection to move us closer to him, the underlying principle is that he wants to move us closer to him, then everything that happens, we'll see it as, in some way, this is helping me in my relationship with Krishna, and that's what Krishna wants, and that Krishna felt in this situation that this is what I needed to do or needed to understand to move forward. And so I don't question this as anything other than love and affection. And I think that's a very important stage of Krishna consciousness to come to. We may not always understand how it's love and affection, but I think, at least in my experience, the more you accept it is, the easier it is to see how. You'll get more insight into it. Say, okay, I can see this is good because in this way it's going to help me become Krishna conscious. And I sometimes would envision, maybe you could envision this as a movie, but I would just envision this idea of, you go back to Godhead and you have all these questions on your mind and you say, Krishna, I know you love me and everything, but I went through so many situations in my life and it didn't seem like love, and I'm just trying to understand. How is it that if you love me, that you put me through all these situations? And then Krishna would one by one show you how each situation was necessary. Maybe you still can't understand it, but Krishna might say, well, if I didn't put you through this situation, then you would have had the freedom or the consciousness to choose something different, and that choice you made would have harmed you. So I created a situation where you were handicapped in some way to make the wrong choice. And then you would say, okay, now I see. Yes, now I see how that helped me. At that time, I didn't understand why you were doing that to me. And then one by one, Krishna would explain to you, answer all your questions. Why did you take my mother away when I was young? Well, this situation, that situation. And then he paints the bigger picture, and then you see everything and how it has led you to come back to him. And obviously, once going back to Godhead, you probably would question everything that happened to bring you there. You would see. It would be easy to see how. So anyway, I don't know if I'll ever make a movie, but I often, when I'm going through difficulty, I often think like that. Okay, I don't understand right now why Krishna's putting me through this, but sometimes I try to guess why. Okay, if I wasn't in this situation, I'd be in this other situation. If I was in this other situation, then perhaps A, B, and C scenario may come up, which is not as good. Like one of my disciples said, he said, I don't understand. He said, you're doing all this service, but right now, financially, you're not in a good situation. And I don't understand why Krishna doesn't throw more money at you. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. And sometimes I think, I'm doing a lot of traveling. I'm just counting the countries that I'm going to, in a 3-month period. India, Mauritius, South Africa, Argentina, Scotland, England, Amsterdam, Belgium, Poland, Germany, Canada, US, and Mexico, maybe another South American country, maybe even Australia before I go back to India. There's 15 countries. That's a lot of traveling. between April and September, isn't it? It's a lot. And sometimes I don't want to travel because I think, well, it would be better if I sit in one place because I need to develop my courses. And I'm thinking, and I've had, it's amazing, I've had so many opportunities where lots of money could come through the work I'm doing, but it didn't. It just, it was like probably 90% of the opportunities didn't fall. They all fell through. So it's like, I'm thinking, okay, so at this point, I travel, I go to temples, devotees give me donations, we put on workshops, and they pay or they donate. I distribute my CDs, soon I'll have a book. In this way, I'm trying to support myself and my preaching. And obviously, if I had more money, I could stay in one place, which I think I really need to do. But I wouldn't go to all these places. So I'm thinking in my mind, Krishna, there were so many opportunities where there was a possibility of income, which would have allowed me to sit in one place. But it didn't happen. And if I don't go to this place and this place, and why going to? Because if I don't go to all these places, then to do all these workshops, then I won't be able to support myself well. Then I think, okay, Krishna, it must be that you want me to go to all these places because if I had the money, I probably would only go to half or 1/3. But right now, I'm in, for example, I mean, every place I go to, I see the value of being there. There's always somebody or many somebodies that I'm able to help in ways that, how should I say this, that our society is not set up to help them in those particular ways. Just the knowledge I have and the things that I've studied that I can particularly help. Or maybe there are devotees that help, but they're not enough to go around. So I go to a place and I see there's a lot of devotees want to talk to me about certain issues, things going on, this and that. And it really helps them. And they thank me. They say, it was really good you came here. This really helped me. And then I see, okay, Krishna wanted me here. There was a reason. And then, so I think, okay, Krishna, if, my Uncle Harry, sent me a check for $100,000, I probably wouldn't be in this temple right now because I wouldn't have had to come. And I could have just been in Mayapur, happy, stable, everything's fine. And I could just be working on developing my courses. And said, but he didn't, Uncle Harry didn't send it. Or Bhakta Harry didn't send it. Or Bhakta Hari didn't send it. So here I am. So then that's the only thing I could think. I said, okay, Krishna, I guess you want me to go to all these places. I was in South Africa. We went to actually went to 5 different temples. In 4 of those temples, we did a vows workshop, which is very, very important. And we did some important work in another temple. So I felt personally this was really important. And so that was my reconciliation. Say, Krishna, why you make it difficult? I mean, sometimes really difficult. Like, how are we going to pay, the bills that if you don't pay, the bank comes and, takes everything away from you? Things like that difficult, not just simple things, Not like the choice between buying a $500 watch and a 250 rupee watch. No, not like that, but, other choices that are like how to make ends meet. Say, Krishna, why are you doing that? No. So that was my realization. So what I'm saying is that in certain situations, Krishna may take something away, but then it leads you to do something else, and you realize he took this away so that I would do that, and you see that, okay, as an instrument, I'm just going along with what he wants, and therefore it's good. And when I went there, I saw that I was able to help this person and that person. It seems like if I didn't come, they wouldn't have got the help they needed. And so now I knew that Krishna wanted me there to help this person. You put it together like that. So that's been one way that I've done it, and always trying to see why you would do these things. Even though I'm trying to go this way, it's not working this way, it's going that way. That's very, very funny also, just as another point, that I've had potential opportunities to do a lot of very big things, which were done outside of ISKCON. At least theoretically, the seeds were there, and sometimes they're very close. But very few of them actually came through, and most of the time, I was left to my service of working with devotees rather than going out and big programs here and big companies and sending so much money to me for my service, but it didn't happen yet anyway. And as a result that I'm working with devotees. And then sometimes I think, well, I can only desire, but I have to see what Krishna wants. And it seems like he must want me working with the devotees right now, because the opportunities for working with devotees, they come naturally. The other opportunities, they come more theoretically on paper, but practically they're happening less. I mean, I have so many devotees we've discussed programs to organize and things to do. It's like amazing. If they all fell through, you'd probably see me on the cover of Time magazine. But they didn't. I mean, if they all happened, but they didn't. Anyway, so Sita says, Sita Leela, could a bad situation for a devotee be due to offenses like inattentive chanting? I can't back that up with Shastra. And if you commit, usually Shastra says if you commit namaparad, you get material benefit. That's what namaparad gives you. You could only say that in the sense that if Krishna saw you deviating, you see, okay, you're chanting offensively, you're not doing well, he sees you deviating, so then he wants to push you back on track, so he might create some situation that will kind of shake you up. So in that sense. But as a direct result of inattentive chanting, I haven't seen anything in Shastra that would indicate that. How do we know a bad situation is a punishment for offenses? This is a great question, because I think devotees think Krishna likes to punish us. There's this mentality I've noticed amongst devotees. It's kind of like, this class is about Krishna's love. And I'm glad you brought this up, because this is kind of where I was getting to, by saying we have to see it how it's Krishna's love. But I think there's this concept of Krishna as a punisher, like he's, if I'm not nice to my husband, he'll punish me. If I chant inattentively, he'll punish me. If I come to Mangal Arati late, then I'll probably bang my toe and stub my toe when I walk into the temple. All these things. So it's not like that. That's not how Krishna operates. And I mean, if you pray to Krishna, if I'm late to Mangal Arati, help me stub my toe. Maybe he'll fulfill your desire. If you say, Krishna, please, if I ever fall into Maya, do something horrendous to wake me up. Maybe he will do something horrendous to wake you up. But generally that's not how he operates. And I think a lot of that, I mean, you're Indian, so it's harder for me to say this. I don't know if you can relate to this, but if you come from a Catholic background, a lot of devotees feel that way, because Catholic theology is very guilt-oriented, that you've sinned, you have to be free from sin. So maybe that's in there from pre-ISKCON time, that if you sin, God punishes. And therefore we consider some deviation or some impurity within Krishna consciousness as a sin. And then Krishna punishes us. But I think a lot of that is coming from our preconditioning. And even psychologists say that the way you see your parents like God, and if your parents are like that, they punish you a lot, you'll see God in the same way. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because even though Krishna is not that way, we may see him that way. right? Okay, Krishna did punish Bali Maharaj, but look what happened afterwards, right? So, sometimes I always see that a lot of times I don't know what Krishna wants, and so just like, for example, I'm here in Scotland. We were talking about coming to Scotland, but I was trying to stay in South Africa longer. I was actually planning to stay in South Africa longer. And I told the devotees in Scotland that maybe we should postpone it. And they said, actually, we've already advertised your workshops, a few weeks ago, passed out 1,000 flyers, this or that. So I said, okay, I guess Krishna wants me to go to Scotland now. There must be a reason. So I think we need to try to just do our best. And material nature is good at punishing us. Krishna doesn't have to really go out of his way. But if there's something way Krishna wants to push us, sometimes he might, or something Krishna wants to teach us, he might. But our acharyas say that he does that through our karma generally. And I think the problem of being too offense conscious is that it's not healthy. Did I make an offense, or I must have made an offense, or I don't want to make an offense? And I think that's healthy to a certain degree, but I think if it's excessive, it can make you, or it can make us, it's just not real. You know what I mean? It's not the way we're supposed to live. Krishna's position is not to punish his devotees. Now, if you offend a pure devotee, yeah, there's going to be a reaction. But see, Leela, your sentence ended on my screen. It ended in Krishna's Act 2. The rest of it I didn't get. Yeah, so all of you can call up my Uncle Harry and tell him. Hurry up, Harry. Yeah. Okay. So, this is a very good point you brought up. And I think this point of feeling perhaps excessively concerned about offenses and their reactions. So as we look at everything that's not perfect in our life must be a reaction for some offense I made, it's not true, and it's not healthy. And I think what it does is it infringes upon our ability to appreciate Krishna's love for his devotee. Now, Prabhupada said something interesting. He said he was supposed to die in the Jaladuta. He was going to die of a heart attack. And Krishna massaged his chest and saved him. Right? So, was Prabhupada having a heart attack because of offenses? Was Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita stolen and this crazy guy, whatever his name was, I forgot, kicking him out, getting mad at him and kicking him out of the apartment, was that due to offenses? Of course not. It was part of a Leela. And then you might say, well, here's a pure devotee, and Krishna loves him. Why would he put him through these situations? Well, I'll tell you a little story. I'll tell you a little story. It's a very interesting story. This might help us also understand Krishna's love for Prabhupada. I first went to South Africa in 1981, and when I went there, I had come 5 months after the former temple president had left, and there was actually no temple president. So it's just kind of ad hoc administration, and the person who was running the temple, not officially as temple president, was not really doing the job of temple president. He was just kind of holding the temple until somebody would come. And the best way I could describe it was there were a lot of weeds in the garden. Not literal weeds, but the garden of the temple, the garden in the heart. There were just things that weren't right. when I got there. And I'm in a new country, and it was a new challenge. And actually, things were more difficult in that temple than any temple I've ever managed before. It was a very South Africa in those days in '81. Nobody visited there. There was very little going on. Now more devotees visit. There's thousands of devotees. Many gurus have disciples there. But in those days, it was very small. So it was just very isolated on my own. Temple of like 5 devotees. This new country. They're driving on the opposite side of the street. They speak in a different way than we do in America. The names of things are different. What we call one thing in America, they often call another thing. I was kind of just thrown off a bit. And it's Africa. It's a different culture. You know, it's just different. And we were struggling to build things up, and the devotees, I could feel the isolation of the devotees as opposed to America. I could feel that they were a little weaker, a little more tender, a little more volatile. Volatile's not the word. Tender, sensitive. They just needed a little. They didn't have the care and attention and the association that devotees in the West had. So they were more difficult to push forward. It just wasn't like as tight an operation, and the devotees weren't quite as inspired and well educated in Krishna consciousness as they were in America. So I went through a lot of struggles, and I hit a point where I was kind of at my wit's end of how to continue in this situation, because whenever I'd solve one problem, there was another problem. And every new problem was a problem I'd never seen before in ISKCON. Just very strange things. One day this happens, the next day that happens, the next day this guy steals this couple runs off, I don't want to tell you all the details, but you get the picture. So my godbrother was there. He was kind of overseeing activities in the whole country. So I told him how I was feeling. He said, read the Leela Amrita. So that'll help you. So I was reading the Leela Amrita, and I was reading all the troubles that Prabhupada went through, and how Prabhupada dealt with that. And then comparing those troubles to my situation, and Prabhupada's situation was much, much more difficult than mine. And so I realized at that time that Krishna put Prabhupada through these difficulties, not because of anything that Prabhupada did wrong, or not obviously because Krishna didn't love him, but it was necessary for us. Krishna used Prabhupada as an example, and he had to put Prabhupada through difficulties to just glorify Prabhupada. Prabhupada's starting ISKCON is so glorious because he started with nothing, and he went through all these difficulties. And the difficulties that Prabhupada went through were very similar to the difficulties we as his disciples would have to go through for us to spread Krishna consciousness. Now we have a problem. My SD card is full, and this lecture is going to not be recorded. Anyway, it'll be on. It'll be on here. So, in what you might say, Krishna making things difficult, or asking why would Krishna allow things to be so difficult for Prabhupada, he's worried about money. He's worried about where he's going to stay. He doesn't have a permanent place. His life is almost in danger sometimes. He has to run out of an apartment. He has nowhere to go. Why? Okay, well, let's say you wanted to make a movie about Prabhupada in New York. It would be quite exciting, wouldn't it? All the challenges he went through would be very dramatic, and it would endear people to Prabhupada. So Krishna did that to show us this is how a pure devotee deals with that situation. And that gave me so much inspiration to continue in that service in South Africa. So, you can't always know exactly, but again, you have to make this assumption that Krishna is doing it out of affection, that everything ultimately is working towards coming to a higher understanding or the highest benefit for everyone. And I think it's really important for us to see things that way. And if we don't, I think we're going to have trouble. And we could lose faith in Krishna and lose faith that Krishna is taking care of us. And that's one of the symptoms of surrender, to have that confidence that Krishna is taking care of us, is guiding us. Right? Is that correct? Yeah. That's 6 symptoms of surrender. That's one of them. Krishna, he's my protector, he's my maintainer. That I go to him. I don't lose faith. Well, Krishna put me in this situation, I almost ran out of money, this and that. So maybe, I give up on Krishna and just go to my Uncle Harry. He seems to be more generous right now. No, it's not like that. Krishna is my maintainer. If Uncle Harry gives me anything, it's Krishna telling him to give. It's never independent of that. And Krishna knows what I need, what I deserve, and I have to accept that. That's the idea. Right? You all agree? Anyone disagree? Raise your hand. Okay. So, Shastrically speaking, Krishna says the devotee is in my heart. I am in the heart of the devotee. There's a very intimate relationship with me. So, when you talk about Krishna consciousness, there's always, it tends to be that we're looking at from our perspective and the process which helps us develop love of Krishna. What is that process? How we do it, how the love develops, our relationship with Krishna, our need to love him, our need for purification, the various stages of love. And we don't look at it so much from how Krishna's loving us. And that's something that we don't want to neglect, because it's just a reality. So, Krishna says, I'm in the heart of my devotees. I can't forget my devotees. I am obliged by my devotees. I'm controlled by my devotees. So you might say, well, I don't love Krishna, so I don't control him. But for Krishna to say I'm controlled by my devotees, obviously he's controlled by his pure devotees. But it shows that Krishna is not, he's not immune to love, but actually he is really, that's what he is. That's what he's made of. That's why what makes him function is love. That everything he does is a manifestation of his love for his devotees. Everything he does is to enhance the love for his devotees. Every Leela he engages in is for us. He doesn't have to come here and engage in these Leelas. Mahaprabhu doesn't have to come